What is the first thing that comes to mind when you think of the name Eartha Kitt? When I think of the name Eartha Kitt, I can tell you the first things that come to mind is Catwoman, aggressive, sexy, seductress, women's empowerment, bold speaker, outspoken, and even to her own child that claimed, oh, my mother died of colon cancer, and when she died in 2008, she went out screaming. She went out the same way she lived her life. And I kept thinking to myself, that doesn't seem true at all. Every interview I have watched of Eartha Kitt portrayed a woman that was intelligent, captivating, and just able to really articulate her feelings and emotion really well. And it has a lot to do with her upbringing and seeing that Eartha Kitt grew up in a way that was, for anyone, it could have broken them. Being given away by her mother, right? Not having her mom be able to take care of her. Her mom was 15-year-old, having children already. 15. Yeah, that's the kind of nonsense that was going on back in the day. And colorism was real. If you were lighter skin, which was the case for Eartha Kitt, she was probably my complexion. And she had she's a mulatto. And Eartha Kitt just didn't fit in. She was not wanted. She was a reject, so to speak, in her community. So when I watched that, and I kept thinking, wow, we see this in Bob Marley's story. We see this in a bunch of people who grew up in those days that didn't look the part. They were not wanted. They were casted out. And it made me think about what she probably had to endure and what she endured even up to her career as an actress. And I think it's why a lot of people that go into acting or singing or dancing or entertainment, they usually have a crazy backstory. I don't know too many actors and actresses that just, came out of, some beautiful, loving, caring family and succeeded in the industry. There's a lot of scars that a lot of them face, especially the good actors. Anyway, because these young actors and actresses coming up, in my opinion, just don't have what it takes. They don't have the breadth of emotions. They don't understand hardship. They don't understand struggle. They don't understand pain, suffering, none of the above. And it's why, for me, it just doesn't convey on the screen when they try to act in these very serious roles where it takes real understanding of life and passion and work and ethics and morals. So she was an outspoken advocate for, LGBTQIA, even back then when it wasn't popular. Even though she was somebody that seemed sexually, she was unafraid of her sexuality and what it was to be a woman. Even back then, when times were a little less risque and more prude here in America. But the fact remains is she left a legacy that shows us that you can come from nothing. You can come from a woman wearing, as she said, a crocus sack. And if you don't know what that is, it's like a durlap bag. It's very harsh material, almost like a jute material. If you grew up poor, you know what a crocus sack is. And it would be used to carry rice or potatoes or things like that. And when I hear her say those things, that she was tied up and beaten by her older adopted families, some kids that were older than her, almost on a daily, and watching the story of her life and seeing how she was ostracized by her own Black community, which happens still to this day, guys. I get told all the time, you're not Black. I'm Black. If you saw my dad and if you saw my family on my mom and my dad's side, you would say, oh, she's Black. I'm Black. And I do have some mixed heritage, which gives me my own definitions and looks to my face, but I'm clearly Black. In fact, I'm Nigerian, which is why I have this weird little pointy, this is a Nigerian nose right here, this part. But I look at what she endured, and to me, it still shows today when I see people pitting people against one another, when I see people worrying about the skin color of somebody. Nothing has changed. And take you through some clips and just talk about it with you.
All like to say the same thing, but unfortunately, most of our husbands work for Mr. Johnson. So a lot of those women who were there were not outsiders. They were in with Mrs. Johnson. So it was 2 hours after that luncheon, and just took until 1975 for me to get this dossier, because I didn't even know it until 1975 that I was suddenly cut off from the American public.
Yes, your career took a conspicuous nosedive at that point, and
Two things stood out there for me. One, the first part of her saying that the woman next to her at this luncheon she was invited to at the White House at the behest of Lady Bird Johnson and obviously the president at the time, Lyndon B. Johnson, that they sat there, these women, and had their head down and was like, you're basically saying what we want to say. Shows there's always going to be the woman, the man out there that is going to stand up and speak up on behalf of you. And I feel that whenever you see content creators on these apps and they're saying the things that you want, you better follow them, because these people are putting their life at risk, their livelihoods at risk. You know, I can never get a job in public relations anymore because of the things I have seen and the things I have said and the things I have witnessed. I would never be able to get a regular job. So having the people follow me, having people actually support people that actually are saying the things that they want to hear is a risk. And what she was doing was risking her hardworking career by speaking up at that luncheon and saying, hey, I don't agree with this. I don't agree we should be sending our young men and women to Vietnam. I think this is wrong. Our children are dying for no reason. And they didn't like that. They tried their hardest to ruin her career. And as you saw there, the second part of that was the fact that there was a dossier put out against her. A dossier is just basically someone doing a deep dive background check on you. That's all a dossier is. And then filling it with things to smear or to destroy your character or who you are as a public person. And even not public people have dossiers. Believe you me, you have a dossier on you right now with the government. Because everything you say on this internet is put out there so that other people can then later use it against you. They can use sound bites of you saying something. You could be having a full-blown sentence about something, and they will cut just a snippet of what you said and use it against you in a way unimaginable. And think with AI and all the artificial technologies out there, these apps that can make a person replicate a person's voice without their permission and all these things. Could you imagine it's going to be like in the future? Dossiers are not going to be just a paper that the government is giving to the government or the FBI or any of these three-letter agencies. It's going to be taking your social media feed and destroying you, as we have seen in today's day and age. And the reason I'm doing this video, I've always been one that loved biographies. I love watching biographies of people because we can learn so much of where we've been to where we are currently today. And what I've learned is nothing's changed. It's literally the same thing, same exact things happening over and over and over. It's like mankind is on a vicious cycle of just repeating the same disaster after disaster, and they refuse to get off this wheel of crazy. All right, these wars benefit the rich. And as she said there in her interview, actually I was watching another interview of her talking about that incident at the White House and how she had, they were waiting on the president, and he walked in and said, I'm happy to have the common folks around me. And I kept thinking to myself, wow, the common folk. She was anything but common folk, but that's how he referred to her and the people in that room. Let's watch the rest of the clip.
Says that 2 hours after the luncheon, President Johnson picked up the telephone and called across the nation networks and said, I do not want to see that woman on the air.
do you think that's true?
It's what's on the dossier.
Yeah.
And this is CIA and FBI.
So aside from the blacklisting and her having to relocate out of the United States, it says that she moved to Eartha Kitt, relocated to Europe and Asia, where she continued her career and found more opportunities abroad, working at nightclubs, theaters, and on television. This was overseas. I feel a lot of people, and I just did a story on Josephine Baker and how she moved to France to better her life and better her chances of succeeding, because America just wasn't it, guys. When you look at the history of America, this is a country stained by slavery, stained by racism and just hatred for people that don't look the same color as you. And when I think about all the stupidness that this country has endured, all right, it shows we have not come a long way. It really shows we are still stuck in the past and we have not ascended yet. As even though it's a free country, even though we are a melting pot of many different races and culture, there's something heavy about this country. There's anybody who comes to America knows that it takes being very tough. It takes being callous. It takes being strong to survive here, because even though there's inequity everywhere, there's social inequity everywhere. You go to France, you go to Europe, you go anywhere outside of America, there's inequity, there's rich, there's poor, there's classism, there's all that stuff. It's different outside of America. I just have to say that. And as someone who's foreign, you feel like there's still life in you. There's something heavy about being in America, because Americans in general, I don't think they've ever been able to forgive themselves for slavery, if that makes sense. There's a lot of people here, and I see it in the way some Americans act. You're not going to make up for slavery. You're not. And even Eartha Kitt said it in her speech. She said, I'm still waiting on my 40 acres and a mule. It's not going to happen. They're not going to right the wrongs of slavery. It's not going to happen. But the way you can do it is by allowing free speech, allowing Americans to live with their freedoms, their constitutional rights, their sovereign rights, and taking away and stripping people of their rights. All the amendments that we've had since the Constitution was drafted I think it has destroyed America. Single-handedly has destroyed America. And it's because of the oversight of government. It's because of what she said there. The president should never have the ability to pick up a phone, make a phone call, and destroy a person's career. Her career was ruined by her own president. Let that sink in. I think a lot of people don't think about that. Social media, on mainstream media, on regular platforms like mine that are smaller channels, free speech is under attack. And I know this firsthand because I've had, these platforms say my speech is hate speech or misinformation. Most of my content is strictly opinion based. It's me interpreting the world around me and the influence of the communities that I live in or have lived in to share with you guys what I feel we're headed to. One I wrote down because I feel that when you look at these major tech companies, these social platforms, these play a huge role in the kind of speech that we're able to have nowadays, because information is moving quickly. It's not like in Eartha Kitt's day where she's there on a Dick Cavett show or any of these, shows being interviewed, and you have to wait for it to come out, and they could really go through it with a fine-tooth comb and make sure nothing is wrong and that what she's saying is correct. You can't do that. Information is moving very swiftly, and people are saying whatever they want to say and sharing information. In fact, I see so much information on these apps that is false information.
But
I think it's also
It really is
unfair
quite
for the
startling.
CIA to be spending American tax money to find riffraff about us personally that has
it-
nothing to do with being subversive. It's a
can't be
waste
that
of money
hard,
and
too, to
time.
find an informant who wants to spread a little dirt about anybody who's successful.
For me, seeing Dick Cavett there try to, play it up like, oh, well, if they could find dirt on you, they will, kind of thing. It just speaks volumes about where we have been. There's people out there, I agree with her, that are thinking the money that is being spent on these smear campaigns, the money that we have spent trying to, on both sides, Democrats and Republicans, trying to character assassinate each other, it should be worrying. It should be worrying for all the people out there that's working in these type of agencies. I'm speaking to you right now. Ask yourself, is this a legacy you want? You want to work for a government agency where you are trying to destroy another human being's life for no reason other than you were just given orders? Be the case for all of us that if we see something stupid and ridiculous, that we call out nonsense. It shouldn't be just one or two people having to be the fearless people in this world and having to stand up to crazy. Anyway, I believe Eartha Kitt was an astounding woman, but I want to show you one last clip of her as she got older, see her and solidify in my mind what kind of person she really was.
Others that you would have them to do unto you, you never know if you have them or not. So speak out. This is what this country is all about. Speak out. And do unto others as you would have them do unto you.